My name is Hannah Collins, and I'm 32 years old. As I sit beside my 6-year-old son Noah's hospital bed, watching his tiny chest rise and fall with effort, I can barely tell what day it is anymore. 3 days in the ICU have left me exhausted, hollow-eyed, and scared beyond anything I've ever known. What started as a simple case of pneumonia has spiraled into a nightmare no mother should ever face. The only sounds in the room aside from the steady beeping of the monitors come from my phone. The screen lights up. Mom, my stomach knots. I already know this call is going to change everything. Before I take you into what happened next, I want to ask, where are you watching from today? Hit subscribe and like if you've ever had to choose between family expectations and protecting the one you love. To understand why a phone call from my mother could send such dread through me right in the middle of the worst moment of my life, you need to know a bit of our past. I became a single mom 4 years ago when my marriage to Jason ended. Noah was just 2 at the time. It wasn't a dramatic breakup, more like a slow, painful realization that we'd grown into different people who couldn't find their way back to each other. Jason moved to Seattle for work. He sends child support regularly and video calls Noah twice a week. He's not a bad father, just a faraway one. Since then, it's been just Noah and me against the world. We live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Portland. I work as a graphic designer for a marketing agency that thankfully lets me work from home most days. We don't have much, but we have each other. Noah is my entire world. He's curious, gentle, and full of questions. He collects rocks and can name every dinosaur that ever existed. His laugh, it could light up the darkest room. My relationship with my mother, Diane, has always been complicated. Growing up in our upper-middle-class home in Lake Oswego, appearances meant everything. Diane was queen of the neighborhood on every committee, running every charity event. Our house was spotless, our clothes always brand name, our accomplishments proudly displayed. But underneath all that polish ran a current of conditional love. Stand up straight, Hannah. That A- won't get you into an Ivy League school. Why can't you be more like your sister? These were the constant refrains of my childhood. My younger sister Lauren fit the mold perfectly. Straight A's, homecoming queen, married her Stanford sweetheart, lives just 20 minutes from our parents with 2 perfect children and a husband who works in investment banking. They do Sunday dinner with our parents every week. Her Christmas cards look like something out of a magazine. I, on the other hand, was always the odd one out. Creative, curious, always pushing boundaries. When I told Diane I was going to study art instead of law or business, she didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When I married Jason, a teacher without family money or social connections, she wore black to the wedding like she was mourning. And when I told her I was pregnant, her first question wasn't about my health or happiness, it was whether we'd be moving to a better neighborhood. After my divorce, Diane made her disappointment very clear. Marriage takes work, Hannah. Your generation just gives up too easily. Never mind that she had no idea what private struggles Jason and I had gone through. When I moved into the apartment with Noah, she offered to help financially, but there were strings attached. She'd cover Noah's private school and supplement my income, but in return, I was expected to attend every family gathering, consider her opinions on parenting, and basically hand over my independence. I accepted. The school was amazing, and the extra money meant I could give Noah better healthcare and some special experiences. But the price was steep. Every decision I made was second-guessed. Every holiday turned into a minefield of passive-aggressive comments. Every time Noah had the sniffles or a bruise, it was somehow proof that I was failing as a mother. Diane especially loved using Lauren's parties and family holidays as leverage. Missing any event was treated like a betrayal. 2 years ago, I had to skip Lauren's anniversary party because Noah had strep throat. Diane didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. Last Christmas, we showed up 30 minutes late because Noah's winter concert ran long. She served us cold food and made snide remarks about punctuality the entire night. Still, I tried to keep the peace. Noah adored his grandparents, especially my father, Peter. He'd sneak Noah cookies and tell him stories about his own childhood. Peter was gentle, quieter than Diane, but rarely opposed her directly. Sometimes he'd call me on his own to check in. Our conversations were short, but they meant something. For the last few months, things had been relatively calm. I'd learned to keep conversations with Diane light and visits short. Noah was doing great in school, making friends, growing more confident every day. I'd even started going on the occasional coffee date with men who made me laugh, who reminded me that I was more than just someone's mom. And then, 3 days ago, everything fell apart. Noah had been fighting what seemed like a basic cold for about a week. Runny nose, a little cough, nothing serious. I kept him home from school, gave him over-the-counter medicine, made chicken soup, but on Tuesday morning, he woke up gasping for air. His lips were turning slightly blue. I've never been so scared in my life. I called 911 and held him close, whispering that everything would be okay while my whole body trembled with fear. The ambulance ride was a blur. At the hospital, doctors rushed him away while I stood frozen, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. The diagnosis came fast: severe pneumonia with complications. The infection had spread quickly, filling his lungs with fluid. He needed to be intubated and admitted to the pediatric ICU immediately. I signed forms without reading a word, just nodding numbly while the doctors explained the risks and what they were going to do. And that's how I ended up here, sitting in this sterile room, surrounded by beeping machines and antiseptic smells, watching my beautiful boy struggle to breathe, wondering if I'd ever hear his laughter again. Time in the pediatric ICU doesn't follow any real schedule. Days blur into nights, marked only by the changing shifts of the nurses and the steady rhythm of machines checking vitals. Noah lay in a hospital bed that looked far too big for his small body. Tubes ran from his nose, mouth, and arms, each one keeping him alive, each one terrifying. The ventilator made a whooshing sound as it pushed air into his lungs. It comforted me and scared me, a sign he was still breathing, but also a reminder that he couldn't do it on his own. His face was puffy, his eyes stayed closed, his skin was pale, except for the flushed red from his fever. I could barely recognize my bright, happy child beneath all that medical equipment. Dr. Ramirez, the pediatric ICU doctor, explained everything gently but clearly. The bacterial pneumonia has caused serious inflammation in both lungs, she said. We're giving him strong antibiotics, but his body's struggling. The next 72 hours are critical. When I asked what critical really meant, she placed her hand on mine and said, "We're doing everything possible, but his condition is very serious. His oxygen levels are low. His body is fighting hard. Kids are strong, Miss Collins, but you need to understand how serious this is." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. After she left, I cried into my hands silently, so the nurses wouldn't hear. I couldn't lose him. I wouldn't survive it. The hospital gave me a reclining chair beside Noah's bed. That's where I stayed that first night, refusing to go home even when the nurses gently suggested I rest or shower. What if he woke up scared and I wasn't there? Worse, what if something happened while I was gone? So I stayed, napping in short, restless bursts between nurse checks and the constant beep of machines. My friend Mia came the second day, bringing me clean clothes, dry shampoo, a toothbrush, and a charger. She hugged me tight and offered to stay, but I couldn't deal with anyone else's worry, not when my own emotions were stretched so thin. In that moment, nothing outside this room mattered, only Noah. In the rare moments when Noah's condition seemed steady, I would gently hold his tiny hand and talk to him, hoping that somewhere deep in his unconscious mind, he could still hear me. I told him stories about the dinosaurs we'd go see when he got better. I reminded him of our summer plans to visit the coast. I made promises: ice cream for breakfast, superhero movies way past bedtime, anything he wanted. Just please, please keep fighting. Between these one-sided conversations, memories would come rushing back. Noah at 3, splashing in puddles, laughing as the water soaked his clothes. Noah at 4, explaining seriously why T-Rex couldn't brush his teeth. Their arms are too short, mommy. Just last month, proudly showing me the science project he had mostly completed on his own. Each memory was both a balm and a blade, a reminder of the bright, incredible soul lying still in front of me. On the evening of the second day, Diane and my father, Peter, showed up for a brief visit. Peter looked genuinely heartbroken, his eyes rimmed with red as he stared at his grandson. He didn't say much, just squeezed my shoulder tightly, an action that said far more than words ever could. Diane, on the other hand, looked more uncomfortable than concerned. She stood stiffly at the end of Noah's bed, clutching her designer purse like it was armor. "This place is dreadful," she whispered, as though the hospital's lack of decoration was the real problem. Surely they could make it less depressing. She stayed exactly 15 minutes. She didn't ask a single question about Noah's condition. Instead, before leaving, she told me I looked awful. Peter hesitated as he followed her out, slipping a $20 bill into my hand for the cafeteria. Diane called after him to hurry up. Shortly after they left, a kind nurse named Lucia brought me a real cup of coffee and a sandwich. "Family can be interesting during a crisis," she said gently. I gave her a tired smile. That night, Noah's fever spiked dangerously high. Doctors and nurses rushed in, administering more medications, adjusting machines, speaking in rapid, urgent tones. Even Dr. Ramirez was called in. Despite the late hour, I stood against the wall, trying not to be in the way yet needing to stay as close to my son as I could. "His body's fighting hard," Dr. Ramirez told me afterward. "But this infection is stubborn. The next 24 hours will be very telling." I nodded, too numb to speak. When she left, I curled up in the recliner, pulled my knees to my chest, and began praying, not even sure to whom. The next morning, day 3 brought no improvement. In fact, Noah looked even worse. The nurses' faces grew tighter, their movements quicker, more deliberate. Dr. Ramirez ordered more tests, adjusted his medications. I drifted through that day in a fog, surviving on vending machine snacks and bitter coffee. That's when my phone rang for the first time. It was Diane. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't have the strength to deal with her version of support. 20 minutes later, she called again. I ignored it. Then came the text. "Call me when you're ready to talk about when you'll be returning to normal life. This has gone on long enough." I stared at the message in disbelief. Normal life? As if I were on a vacation instead of sitting beside my critically ill son. I turned my phone off and focused again on Noah, watching every rise and fall of his chest like it was a miracle. But an hour later, I turned it back on. The school might need to contact me. Jason might call for an update after my brief text. That's when the third call came through. Diane's name flashed on the screen like a warning light. I stepped into the hallway to take it. There was no way I'd let her energy near Noah. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "Hannah, finally." Her voice was sharp, irritated. "I've been calling you all day. I'm at the hospital, Mom." My own voice sounded distant and hollow. "Yes, I know that," she sighed, as if I'd said something obvious. "But tomorrow is Lauren's birthday, and I need your help with the preparations. The caterer arrives at 10 o'clock, and I need someone to supervise while I pick up the cake and flowers." For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. She couldn't be serious. "Mom, I can't leave the hospital. Noah is in critical condition." "Oh, Hannah," she said, her tone shifting into the one she always used when I was being difficult. "Kids get sick all the time. The doctors and nurses are doing everything they can. You sitting there watching him isn't making any difference." Her words hit like a slap. I gripped the phone harder, pressing it to my ear like that would help her hear me better, help her understand. "He's fighting for his life," I said, voice cracking. "The doctors say the next 24 hours are critical. I can't and I won't leave him." "This is exactly your problem," Diane continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "You're always so dramatic. Remember when you had that appendectomy in college? Your father and I flew across the country, canceled our anniversary cruise, and when we arrived you were sitting up eating Jell-O." "I was 19, I replied. "And this is nothing like that. Noah is 6 years old, Mom. He has severe pneumonia. He's on a ventilator. Do you understand what that means? A machine is breathing for him." There was silence. For one brief second, I thought maybe I'd broken through. But then, well, I'm sure he's getting excellent care. That's why we pay for that premium insurance coverage. But family obligations don't just vanish because of illness. Lauren only turns 35 once, Hannah. There are 30 guests coming, including the Hendersons and Judge Williams. It matters. That familiar ache returned. That cold, crushing cocktail of disbelief, hurt, and rage that only Diane could summon in me. My entire life, I had twisted myself into whatever shape she required, always trying to win approval that never came. And now, even now with my son, hovering near death, her priorities were the same. "I'm not leaving my son," I said. My voice was steady. It surprised me. If the party's that important, hire someone. Or ask one of Lauren's friends. Hired help isn't the same as family, Diane said, her tone shifting into the self-pitying mode I knew all too well. This is about loyalty, Hannah. About showing up when it matters. I've never missed a single important moment in your life, no matter what was going on. That wasn't even remotely true. She'd miss my college graduation because it conflicted with her garden club's annual fundraiser. She left my first art show early because of a hair appointment. She was late to the hospital the day Noah was born because she had to finish hosting a charity luncheon. Mom, I said, trying once more to make her see. The doctors say Noah might. My voice caught. I couldn't say the rest. It was too awful to speak. I have to be here. Please try to understand. What I understand, she replied coldly, is that you're using this as an excuse. Just like you used your divorce to skip the Wilsons' anniversary party. Just like you use work to avoid family dinners. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by exhaustion. For years, I had sacrificed my dignity, my peace, my independence because her financial support gave Noah a better life. I bit my tongue. I played the part. I kept the peace. But now I was standing in a hospital hallway, just steps away from my child, fighting for every breath he could take, and something inside me finally broke loose. This isn't about excuses, I said quietly. It's about my son. He's critically ill. If you can't understand that, I said firmly, then there's nothing more to say. Well, Diane responded after a brief pause, her voice turning icy, then I think you need to carefully consider what you're doing right now. Your father and I have been extremely generous paying for Noah's private school, helping with your rent whenever you've fallen behind. If you're unwilling to meet basic family obligations in return, perhaps we need to rethink that arrangement. Her threat hung in the air, sharp, deliberate, unmistakable. For a split second, panic flared in my chest. Without their financial support, I didn't know how I would keep Noah's life stable. His school alone cost more than my rent. I had no backup plan, but then I looked through the small window into Noah's room at my son, fighting with everything he had just to stay alive. And I asked myself, what would I be teaching him if I walked away right now? For a birthday party? What kind of message would that send about love and priorities? I'm not leaving him, I repeated, calm and certain. Then you're cut off, Diane snapped. Don't come crying to us when you can't cover his tuition or your car breaks down again. You've made your choice. In that moment, something inside me clicked into place. A kind of clarity I'd never felt before. I realized how I'd mistaken financial support for love, how I'd let myself be manipulated because I thought I needed what my parents gave. But sitting at Noah's bedside for these past 3 days, watching him fight for every breath, I finally understood what really mattered. Yes, I said simply. I have. Then I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. My hands trembled, but my mind was steady. Whatever came next, hardship, struggle, sacrifice, we would face it together, Noah and me. If he made it, when he made it, I went back into his room, took my place beside his bed, and wrapped my hand around his. A new fire had taken root in my heart. Less than an hour after I blocked my mother's number, Noah's monitor erupted in alarm. His oxygen levels were crashing. Suddenly, his small body began to convulse as he fought against the ventilator. I froze, paralyzed with fear, as nurses and doctors rushed into the room. He's crashing, someone shouted. Get Dr. Ramirez. A nurse gently but firmly ushered me out. We need space to work, she explained quickly, her eyes filled with urgency but also compassion. Someone will update you as soon as we can. I stood in the hallway, my back against the cold wall, staring through the window as a team of medical staff swarmed around my son. They moved with precision, adjusting machines, calling out numbers, administering meds I didn't understand. Then someone pulled the privacy curtain closed, my knees buckled, and I slid to the linoleum floor, stunned and shaking. This couldn't be happening. Not to my Noah. Not to the bright-eyed boy who had just built a cardboard dinosaur city in our living room last week. Not the child who kissed my cheek every night and whispered, I love you to the moon and all the way back, mommy. Time broke apart. Suddenly I was back in the delivery room, 6 years ago, hearing his first cries, seeing his wrinkled, red face for the first time. I remembered the promises I'd made silently to him that day. I'd protect him. I'd always put him first. I'd be the mother he deserved. And now those promises felt like ash on my tongue. What good was my love against a vicious infection? What could I do but sit outside, helpless, while strangers fought to save his life? The truth hit me with shattering clarity. I was completely alone. I had just cut off the only financial support I'd relied on. And with that decision, likely severed my connection to my entire family. Jason was across the country. My friends, though, kind had lives, families, limits. If the worst happened, I'd have no one to catch me. And yet, that realization didn't scare me as much as it should have. Because the worst had already happened. Noah's monitors had screamed. His life was on the line. And in that moment, everything else, approval, comfort, money, meant nothing. Only his survival mattered. Across the hallway, I noticed a woman around my age sitting in a nearby chair. She had dark circles under her eyes and clutched a foam coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I gave her a faint nod, too numb to say anything. "My daughter Zoe," she said, motioning toward the room beside us. "Severe asthma attack. Third time this year. I'm sorry. I managed." "Me too." She paused. "Your family helping out?" A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. "Not exactly. My mother just disowned me for refusing to leave my son's bedside to help with my sister's birthday party." I waited for her to be shocked, but she just nodded knowingly. "My parents think Zoe's asthma is because I'm a bad housekeeper. Haven't spoken to them in 2 years." She shrugged. "Sometimes crisis shows you who people really are." Before I could reply, Dr. Ramirez emerged from Noah's room. She looked tired but calm. I scrambled to my feet. "We've stabilized him," she said. "His lungs were struggling with the ventilator, so we've adjusted the settings and added medication. His fever's still very high, which worries me, but he's fighting." "Can I go back in?" She nodded. "Absolutely. Talk to him. Let him hear your voice." As I stepped toward the door, the woman across the hall called softly, "Hey, I'm Kelly. Room 412. If you ever need anything." I turned back. "Hannah, and thank you." Back in the quiet of Noah's room, I took his limp, warm hand in mine. His skin was dry. His fingers didn't move. The machines beeped and whooshed. I brushed his damp hair from his forehead and whispered, "Hey buddy, you really scared me there. But I know you're fighting hard." "I'm right here, Noah. I'm not going anywhere. Not for anything. Not for anyone." As the night passed, nurses came and went. Some adjusted medications, others quietly checked vitals or left fresh blankets and coffee. One nurse shared softly that her own son had once been in the PICU with pneumonia and now he was a healthy college student. These tiny acts of kindness felt like lifelines. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Mom's furious. Says you're being selfish." What's going on? Is Noah really that sick? I stared at the message, torn between fury and sadness. Even now, this was the version of the story being told, that I was the problem. I wanted to explain, wanted to tell her how close we had come to losing him, but I couldn't. I turned the phone face down and let exhaustion take over. At some point during the early morning hours, I stirred from a light sleep. Another notification. It was a photo on Lauren's social media. The birthday decorations were up, flawless and elegant. The caption read, "Final touches for the big day. #blessed, #perfect day family." Not a single mention of her nephew. Not a word about postponing the party. No hint that a child was fighting for his life just a few rooms away. Only the perfectly posed image of a family event that seemed more like a magazine ad than reality. Grief crashed over me. Not for the money, not for the status or the old family roles, but for the painful realization that what I'd thought was love had been control. What I'd accepted as support had been manipulation. A quiet voice broke into my thoughts. "It's hard, isn't it, when the people who are supposed to love us the most don't know how?" I looked up to see Lucia, the night nurse, checking Noah's IV. "My abuela was the same way," she continued. "Nothing I ever did was enough. When I became a nurse instead of a doctor, she didn't talk to me for a year." She shrugged. "But you know what? Some family we're born into, some we choose." She nodded toward Noah. "And some choose us." After she left, I sat in silence, watching dawn's first light stretch across the blinds. We had made it through the night, the longest, hardest night of my life, and somehow, even in the middle of this storm, I felt something stirring. Something I hadn't expected. Freedom. I leaned down close to Noah's ear. "It's a new day, sweet boy," I whispered. "Let's face it together." And though he remained unconscious, his fingers twitched slightly in my hand. Just after 7 o'clock a.m., Dr. Ramirez and her team came in for rounds. They examined Noah, checked his vitals and test results. I stood nearby, holding my breath. "His oxygen levels have improved slightly," Dr. Ramirez finally said. looking at me. And the latest labs suggest the antibiotics may be starting to work. His white blood cell count is still high but not as severely. What does that mean? I asked, afraid to hope. It means he's heading in the right direction. He's still very sick, she warned gently. But these are good signs. We're going to continue the current treatment plan. If things keep trending this way, we might even reduce his sedation later today. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a declaration of victory, but it was hope. And after everything we'd been through, even cautious hope felt like a gift. I thanked her, my throat thick with emotion. After they left, I slipped into the small family bathroom to splash cold water on my face and brush my teeth. The woman in the mirror barely looked like me, hollow eyes, pale skin, deep shadows that made me look 10 years older. When I returned to Noah's room, I was stunned to find someone sitting in my chair. It took a moment to recognize him. Dad, I whispered. Peter looked up, his face lined with concern. At 65, he looked older than I remembered. His once dark hair had gone entirely silver. His tall frame was slightly hunched. He was holding Noah's hand gently, like it might break. Hannah, he said, standing awkwardly. I hope it's okay that I'm here. Of course, I replied, still in shock. But, how did you? I mean, after yesterday? He let out a long breath. Your mother doesn't know I'm here. She's still at home, handling the party details. He looked at Noah again. This is where I need to be. And just like that, tears welled in my eyes, unexpected, unstoppable. Throughout my childhood, Peter had been the quiet parent, the one who never argued, the one who went along with everything to keep the peace. His small kindnesses had always been my lifeline, but now here he was, finally, choosing. Peter had always been the quiet parent, the one who went along with Diane's demands just to keep the peace. His small gestures of support, a quick wink across the dinner table when she critiqued my outfit, secretly paying for an art class when she insisted I take debate instead, had been my lifelines. But he'd never openly stood against her, not until now. How's he doing? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. They think he might be improving, I said softly. The antibiotics may finally be working. Peter gave a slow nod, then reached into his jacket pocket. I brought a few things, he said, thought they might help. He pulled out Noah's favorite book, a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, and his little stuffed triceratops that usually sat on his bedside table at home. How did you get these? I asked, my hands trembling as I took them. I still have the spare key you gave me last year, he admitted. I thought maybe familiar things might help guide him back. I placed the stuffed dinosaur next to Noah's pillow and set the book on the nightstand. Then, on instinct, I reached out and hugged my father. He stiffened for a second. Affection had never come easy in our family, but then he hugged me back, tight and fierce. I'm so sorry, Hannah, he whispered, for everything, for not standing up for you more, for letting your mother. It's okay, Dad, I said quietly, though we both knew it wasn't. Not really. He stepped back, wiping his eyes quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the emotion. No, it's not, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, this little guy, he's what matters. He turned his gaze back to Noah. Mind if I stay for a while? Please, I said, deeply grateful. Peter settled into the extra chair the nurses had brought in, and for the next few hours, we sat together in quiet vigil. He read Where the Wild Things Are aloud in his soft, steady voice, then started telling stories from his own childhood, things I'd never heard before. Adventures in the woods behind his family's farm, the stray dog he secretly fed all summer, the time he got lost at the state fair. During a pause in our conversation, I finally asked what had been weighing on me. Has Mom always been like this, so controlling? Peter looked down at his hands. Not always, he said. When we first met, she was ambitious, sure, but she was also full of energy, curious, excited about life. She wanted to travel, try everything. Then her father got sick, cancer, right after we got married. Her mother, she just fell apart, couldn't cope. Margaret had to step in. She handled it all, every medical decision, the money, the funeral. He paused, his eyes distant. Something shifted in her after that. Like she decided the only way to avoid chaos was to control everything. And when she couldn't, she panics. I finished softly, and lashes out. Yes. He looked at me with sadness. It doesn't excuse what she's done to you, or what she said yesterday. I wish I understood it more. a nurse came in to check Noah's vitals. His fever's down half a degree, she noted. That's a good sign. Throughout the day, Peter and I took turns sitting closest to Noah, talking to him, reading to him, doing anything that might keep him grounded in this world. At one point, Peter insisted I go to the cafeteria and eat a proper meal. I'll stay right here, he said. He won't be alone. When I returned, I found Peter sitting beside Noah, tears running down his cheeks. He was whispering something to him, too quiet for me to hear. The image brought a fresh wave of emotion crashing over me. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed then again and again. A flood of messages came in. Word had spread. It seemed that I had defied family expectations. Aunt Cynthia texted that I owed my mother an apology. My cousin Rachel sent a passive-aggressive "thinking of you during this difficult time" message, clearly referencing my supposed disloyalty, not Noah's illness. Even my brother-in-law Mark chimed in. Family should come first. I showed Peter a few of the messages. He just shook his head. They don't know, he said. They only hear your mother's version. Right on cue, another notification popped up, this one from Lauren's social media. She'd posted photos of her birthday party preparations. Elegant decor, catered food, professionally arranged flowers. Everything exactly how Diane had envisioned it. The caption read, "Birthday celebrations beginning, wish everyone could be here. Family first." The irony of that hashtag wasn't lost on me. I put my phone away without a word. Peter stayed until visiting hours officially ended. The PICU allowed parents to stay overnight, but all other visitors had to leave. As he stood to go, he pressed a small envelope into my hand. "What's this?" I asked. "Something to help," he said. "Don't tell your mother." After he left, I opened it. Inside was $500 in cash and a handwritten note. "For whatever you need. I'm here for you both. Love, Dad." I tucked it into my bag, overwhelmed by gratitude. That quiet gesture from a man who had spent a lifetime avoiding conflict felt like a rebellion and a rescue. As night settled in, I returned to the rhythm of the PICU. Lucia was on shift again. She brought me a fresh blanket and pillow. "Your papa seems like a good man," she said kindly. "He is," I replied. "Just complicated." She nodded knowingly. "Most families are. But if there's one thing I've learned in 15 years of nursing, it's this: blood doesn't always make family. Love does. Actions do." She checked Noah's for line, then added, "The people who show up when it matters, those are your real family." After she left, I sat there thinking about her words, thinking about who had shown up. Peter breaking old patterns to stand by us. Kelly, the mother from across the hall who instantly understood. Lucia and the other nurses offering compassion alongside medical care. Amber bringing supplies without being asked. Even Dr. Ramirez, who always spoke directly to Noah, as if he could hear her, as if he mattered. Family, it seemed, wasn't always where you expected to find it. I was lightly dozing when I felt it, a faint pressure on my palm. I opened my eyes, instantly alert. Noah's fingers had curled slightly around mine, a weak but intentional grasp. "Noah," I whispered, barely breathing. His eyelids fluttered, though they didn't fully open. His grip tightened just a little more. I hit the call button. Lucia came running. "I think." He squeezed my hand, I told her, voice trembling with hope. She checked the monitors, then smiled. "His numbers look better." And here she pointed to a screen I didn't understand. "He's starting to initiate breaths on his own. He's working with the ventilator instead of against it." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," she said, squeezing my shoulder, "your boy is finding his way back." She went to notify the doctor, and I leaned close to Noah's ear. "That's it, buddy," I whispered. "Keep going. I'm right here. We're going to be okay. Just you and me, I promise." And for the first time in days, I believed that promise. Whatever came next, struggles, changes, loss, we'd face it together. The clarity that had formed in the darkest moments wasn't going anywhere. Some choices, once made, couldn't be undone. Some truths, once seen, stayed with you forever. I kissed Noah's forehead, now cooler than it had been in days, and settled into my chair, hands still wrapped around his, ready to wait for morning. The room was bathed in soft sunlight when it happened. I was reading aloud from Where the Wild Things Are, my voice hoarse from so many days of one-sided conversations. That's when I noticed his eyelids fluttering again more than before. I stopped mid-sentence. "Noah, can you hear me, sweetheart?" The fluttering continued. His fingers twitched in my hand. I hit the call button again. A nurse I hadn't met, her badge said Maya, entered quickly. I think he's waking up, I said, my heart thudding. She checked his vitals and smiled. His numbers are strong. The doctor reduced his sedation last night because of his improvement. She leaned over his bed. Noah, can you open your eyes for us, honey? For a moment, nothing. Then very slowly his eyes opened just a sliver. Enough to reveal the warm brown I'd missed so desperately. They were unfocused, confused, but they were his eyes. Noah, I gasped, tears falling freely. It's Mom. I'm right here. His eyes met mine. There was recognition, a flicker, of something real. He tried to speak, but the ventilator tube stopped him. Panic filled his eyes. It's okay, I said quickly, cupping his cheek. There's a tube helping you breathe. Don't try to talk. You're in the hospital, but you're getting better. Maya called for Dr. Ramirez, who arrived within minutes. Dr. Ramirez examined Noah carefully, then smiled, the first real, genuine smile I'd seen from her. This is very promising, she said. His oxygen levels have improved significantly, and the latest labs show the infection is responding well to the antibiotics. If this trend continues, we may be able to extubate him later today. I could hardly absorb her words through the tidal wave of relief crashing over me. Noah was awake. He was getting better. The nightmare might finally be ending. Throughout the morning, he drifted in and out of sleep, each time staying awake a little longer. The respiratory therapist came to run tests and nodded, clearly pleased with the results. Nurses came and went, adjusting medications and explaining they were slowly reducing his sedation now that he was starting to breathe more on his own. Around midday, Dr. Ramirez returned with a group of specialists. We're going to remove the breathing tube, she explained gently to both of us. It won't feel great, Noah, but it will be quick. You'll feel much better once it's done. I held his hand tightly as they began. He whimpered through the discomfort, and I flinched at the sound, but within moments the tube was out and replaced by a simple oxygen mask. The look of relief on his face said everything. Water. He croaked his first word in for days. A nurse brought ice chips, and I carefully spooned them into his mouth. He closed his eyes as the coolness melted on his tongue. More, he whispered. Once he'd had enough, he looked up at me, his eyes tired but clear. Mommy, he said softly, I love you. And that's when I completely lost it. I broke down, overcome by relief and joy and every heavy emotion I hadn't been able to fully release. I pulled him into my arms as gently as I could, careful not to disturb the IVs and monitors still connected to his small body. I love you too, sweetheart, I whispered through tears. So much. He drifted back to sleep soon after, but this time it was different. This was rest, not sedation. His breathing was slower, stronger. His expression was peaceful. I stepped outside to call my dad. He picked up on the first ring. Hannah, is everything okay? He's awake, Dad, I said, my voice breaking. They removed the breathing tube. He's talking. I heard him exhale sharply. Thank God. Oh, thank God. Do you want me to come back today? I think he'd like to see you. Of course, he said without hesitation. I'll be there within the hour. When I returned to Noah's room, I found Kelly, the mom from across the hall, standing in the doorway. I heard the good news, she said with a smile. The nurses, well, they're not great at keeping secrets. I laughed a real laugh, shaky and unfamiliar after so many days filled with fear. He's going to be okay, I told her. I'm so glad. She hesitated for a moment. We're being discharged today. Zoe's doing much better. I just wanted to say goodbye. She handed me a small slip of paper. My number, in case you ever want to talk about difficult moms, sick kids, or anything else. I took it gratefully. Thank you for everything. After she left, I checked my phone and saw a message from Lauren. Need to talk. Mom told everyone you abandoned the family. What's really going on this time? This time, I decided to respond. I sent her a photo of Noah in his hospital bed still, surrounded by monitors, but no ventilator, peacefully asleep. Then I typed, this is what's going on. He almost died, Lauren. He's finally turning a corner today. Happy birthday, by the way. I didn't expect an immediate response, but my phone rang less than a minute later. Hannah? Lauren's voice was hesitant. Is that really Noah? Is he really that sick? Yes, I said. Severe pneumonia, with complications. He's been in the PICU for days. They just took the tube out this morning. Oh my God. She sounded stunned. Mom said he just had a cold. That you were being dramatic trying to get out of helping with the party. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course she did. I'm so sorry, Lauren said. I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? I've been a little busy trying to keep my son alive, I replied, not bothering to hide the edge in my voice. Right? Of course, she said quietly. Is there anything I can do? There was a sincerity in her tone I hadn't heard in years. I softened slightly. Not right now. But thank you for asking. She hesitated. The party was awful, actually. Mom was in a terrible mood, snapping at everyone. She kept making passive-aggressive comments about family loyalty. Dad disappeared for a few hours, came back saying something about car trouble. I smiled at that, imagining Peter making up an excuse to visit the hospital. Listen, Lauren continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper. What she did cutting you off financially while Noah was that sick, that's not okay. I didn't know the full story before, but I don't agree with her. I was stunned. Lauren had always been the obedient one, the golden child, the one who never challenged Diane. To hear her say this, it meant something. Thank you for saying that, I said softly. I should go, she said. She might hear me, but please keep me updated on Noah. And Hannah, I'm really glad he's getting better. After we hung up, I sat in silence, trying to process it all. Had Lauren always had these thoughts buried beneath the surface? Had she too been caught in our mother's web, just in a different way? Later, Peter arrived just as he promised, bringing Noah's favorite blanket, his dinosaur encyclopedia, and his beloved Star Wars pajamas. When Noah opened his eyes again, they lit up at the sight of his grandfather. Grandpa, he whispered, still weak but clear. Peter's eyes filled with tears. Hey, sport, you gave us quite a scare. I was really sick, Noah said solemnly. You sure were, Peter replied. But you're tough, just like your mom. Peter stayed for hours, reading to him, helping him drink water, telling stories that made Noah smile even through his exhaustion. When Noah finally fell asleep again, Peter turned to me. He looks so much better. I nodded. Dr. Ramirez says if he keeps improving, he might move out of the PICU tomorrow. That's incredible news. He paused. Hannah, there's something I need to tell you. I've been thinking about this for a long time, even before all of this. What is it? I asked, noticing the serious look in his eyes. I'm leaving your mother. The words hung heavy in the air. I've stayed in a marriage that stopped being loving a long time ago, he continued. Watching you stand your ground, choosing Noah no matter the cost, it gave me courage. Life's too short to live without love, without respect. I reached out and took his hand. Are you sure, Dad? He nodded. I've already spoken to a lawyer. And no matter how things go with the divorce, I want you to know I'll make sure you and Noah are okay. Your mother can cut you off, but I never will. I don't want to come between you. I began. You're not, he interrupted gently. This has been building for decades. What happened with you and Noah? It was just the final push I needed. He squeezed my hand. You showed me what love really looks like, Hannah. The kind that puts someone else's needs before your own. That's the kind of life I want now. Tears welled up in my eyes again, this time from something softer. Relief, gratitude, love for this quiet man who had finally found his voice. I love you, Dad, I said simply. I love you too, sweetheart. Both of you. As the day continued, Noah kept improving. He asked for Jell-O, drank some apple juice. The nurses removed a few of the monitoring lines, giving him more freedom to move. By evening, he was even able to sit up with pillows and flip through his dinosaur book. Dr. Ramirez checked in again and confirmed that if his progress held through the night, he'd be moved to the regular pediatric ward the next day. He's still not completely out of danger, she cautioned. He needs close monitoring and antibiotics, but the worst is behind us. That night, after Peter left promising to come back in the morning, I settled into my now familiar hospital chair. But tonight felt different. Tonight, there was hope. Around midnight, Noah stirred. His small hand reached for mine in the dark. Mommy, he whispered. I'm here, sweetheart. Are we going to be okay? Such a simple question, but one packed with meaning. Was he asking about his recovery? Our money? Our family? Maybe it didn't matter. The answer was the same. Yes, I said with complete certainty. We're going to be better than okay. We're going to be wonderful. He nodded, seeming content, and drifted back to sleep. But just before he slipped under again, he murmured, I love you to the moon, and all the way back, Mommy. I love you to the moon and all the way back, Noah, I whispered. Always. 1 week after Noah's dramatic turnaround, we finally went home. Those in between days had been full of slow, steady healing. Moving from the PICU to the regular pediatric unit, shifting from meds to oral ones, learning to walk again, one wobbly step at a time, eating real food, gaining strength. Each tiny milestone felt like a miracle. Dr. Ramirez did her final checkup, pressing the stethoscope gently against Noah's chest. Much clearer, she said, pleased. You've made a fantastic recovery, young man. Noah beamed at the compliment. He was still easily tired, still needed rest, but the color was back in his cheeks. The sparkle had returned to his eyes. Can I go back to school soon? He asked. Can I go back to school soon? Noah asked eagerly. Not just yet, Dr. Ramirez replied kindly. You'll need at least another week of rest at home. Then we'll see how you're doing. But I have a feeling you'll be back with your friends before you know it. As she prepared the discharge paperwork, I began packing our things, the little mountain of items that had built up over the week in the hospital, plus everything Peter had brought from home. The thought of going back to our apartment filled me with a strange mix of relief and unease. Relief to finally be leaving the hospital behind. Anxiety about what our new life might look like. Diane had followed through on her threat. The day after Noah regained consciousness, I'd received formal notice. His private school tuition wouldn't be covered for the next term. The supplemental income that had helped me with rent had also been cut off. I hadn't had time to process what all of that would mean, but I knew changes were coming. Peter arrived to take us home, his car packed with groceries and household supplies. I figured the last thing you'd want to do is go shopping, he said as he helped Noah into his booster seat, gently securing the straps. Thanks, Dad. That was really thoughtful. The drive home was quiet. Noah stared out the window like he was seeing the world for the first time. And maybe, in a way, he was. Coming so close to losing everything has a way of making even the smallest things feel enormous. Precious.as we pulled into the parking lot of our apartment. I noticed several familiar cars, Amber Little Compact, Kelly's minivan, and a few others I recognized from our building. What's going on? I asked. Peter just smiled. Let's call it a welcome home committee. Sure enough, when we walked through our front door, the apartment had been transformed. A big Welcome Home Noah banner stretched across the living room. Balloons and streamers decorated the walls. And there, filling the space, were a dozen people, friends, neighbors, even Noah's favorite teacher. Surprise. They all called out as we walked in. Noah's face lit up, though he quickly leaned into my side, still tender from all he'd been through. Amber came over and wrapped me in a tight hug. We just wanted to remind you, she whispered. You're not alone, not for a single second. I blinked back tears as I took it all in. People I knew well, others I barely knew before Noah got sick. They had come together for us. They'd cleaned our apartment, stocked the fridge, set up a 2-week meal train. Kelly handed me an envelope. We did a little fundraiser with the school parents, she said. It's not enough for full tuition, but it might help with the transition. Inside was over $2,000, a staggering kindness that gave us some breathing room. Noah's teacher, Miss Wilkins, pulled me aside during the gathering. I heard about the tuition situation, she said gently. I want you to know the local public school is excellent. I have friends there and would be happy to introduce you. The celebration was brief, everyone mindful that Noah still needed rest. When the last guest left, I tucked him into the couch with his favorite dinosaur documentary. That was nice, he said sleepily. All those people came. Just for me? For us, I said, brushing his hair gently. They care about both of us. After he dozed off, Peter helped me move him to his bed and tuck him in. I have something to show you, he said when we returned to the living room. He handed me a folder. Inside were legal documents. I flipped through them in disbelief. It was a trust fund in Noah's name, funded entirely by Peter. Dad, I gasped. I can't accept this. It's not yours to accept or decline, he said softly but firmly. It's for Noah's education. It's already established. There's enough for private school through high school, or for college, whatever you think is best for him. It's non-negotiable. I shook my head, overwhelmed. Does Mom know? No, I've had a separate account for years. I always had a feeling this day might come, he sighed. The divorce filing goes in next week. I've moved into a small apartment for now. How are you feeling about it? I asked gently. He paused. Sad, in some ways. 40 years is a long time to spend with someone, but also lighter, like I can breathe again. He gave a wry smile. Not unlike Noah, I suppose. 3 days after we returned home, I received a certified letter from Diane's lawyer. I opened it slowly, expecting more financial fallout, or perhaps even legal threats about visitation. Instead, it was a demand, a coldly worded letter insisting on a public apology for my abandonment of family obligations before any reconciliation could be considered. I sat with it for a long time. The old me, the old Hannah would have apologized just to smooth things over, just to keep the peace, just to stay supported. But that woman had been left behind in that hospital room. After some thought, I wrote a response not to the lawyer, but directly to Diane. It wasn't angry. It wasn't harsh. Just clear. I expressed gratitude for the support she'd provided in the past, but made it plain that moving forward, our relationship would only continue under mutual respect. I shared details about Noah's condition, how close we came to losing him. I explained why I made the choices I did, and I said that if healing were ever to happen between us, it would need to come with healthy boundaries. I never got a reply, but 2 weeks later Lauren called. "Can we meet for coffee?" she asked. "There's something I'd like to talk about." We met at a little cafe halfway between our homes. It felt strange to sit across from my sister without the whole family dynamic swirling around us. Just the two of us. She looked different, softer, more real. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, after we caught up briefly. "About Mom, about our family, about you and me." She twisted her wedding ring nervously. "When Dad moved out, it was like a bomb exploded. Mom's been on a warpath, telling everyone her version, even talking about contesting the divorce, though her lawyer apparently told her she has no grounds." I nodded, not surprised, but watching all this, seeing how she's behaving, it's made me rethink a lot of things I always thought were normal. The way she uses money, the way she controls situations, the way she's always put us against each other. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I always thought you were the difficult one, the ungrateful daughter." That's what she told me, and I believed her. But now, I see it differently. She looked down, then back up at me. "You were just brave. You tried to live honestly." I was too scared to be anything but obedient. I reached across the table and held her hand. "It's a hard thing to realize," I said gently. "I want to change," she said. "I want us to be real sisters. I want my kids to know Noah, and I want to stop being afraid of disappointing her." It was the beginning of something new, tentative, but real. Lauren began setting her own boundaries, and of course, it caused chaos. But she stood her ground with the support of her husband, who, as it turned out, had never been comfortable with Diane's behavior either. 3 months after Noah's hospitalization, we celebrated his birthday at the local park. It wasn't one of Diane's extravagant affairs. No caterers. No rented decor. No social ladder invite list. Just dinosaur-themed paper plates, homemade cupcakes, and a bunch of happy, screaming kids running around in the sunshine. Peter came, bringing an enormous dinosaur model kit that made Noah squeal with joy. Lauren came too. Her kids and Noah instantly bonded, forming a little tribe of cousins that felt like it was always meant to be. Kelly and her daughter Zoe joined us as well, our friendship born in the darkest of places, now something steady and lasting. As I watched Noah laugh and run, healthy and full of life, a deep calm settled in my chest. In the months that followed, I landed a better paying design job that allowed me to keep working from home. Noah transitioned to public school and was thriving. Surrounded by supportive teachers, we downsized, cut back, adjusted, and we made it work. Most importantly, we built a new version of family, one rooted in love, in respect, in presence. Peter visited often, free now to be the grandfather he'd always wanted to be. Lauren and I talked regularly, slowly rebuilding the sisterhood we were once denied. Diane remained the one outlier, still refusing to reach out, still demanding apologies before she'd speak to me again. Maybe that would change one day, maybe it wouldn't. Either way, I'd made peace with it. As the birthday party wound down, Noah handed me a drawing he'd made at school, stick figures, lined up in a row, all smiling, each labeled carefully, "My real family." He'd written across the top, there was Peter, Lauren and her kids, Kelly and Zoe, Amber, Miss Wilkins, and in the center Noah and me, holding hands. "Do you like it, Mommy?" he asked, eyes wide with hope. I knelt beside him, touched by the love in every line of that drawing. "I love it," I said. "It's perfect." That night, after I tucked him into bed, I sat on our small balcony and watched the stars appear. The road from that sterile hospital room to this peaceful evening had been long, full of pain, hard choices, letting go. But it had also brought beginnings, connection, truth, and most of all freedom. Sometimes, I realized, the hardest choices reveal what matters most. Sometimes crisis shows us not only who others are but who we are. And sometimes, when we finally stop chasing love, that's always been conditional, we discover just how much real love has been surrounding us all along. Has someone in your life ever asked you to choose between them and someone you love? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments below. And if this touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories about finding strength when it matters most, because sometimes the family we choose is just as powerful as the one we're born into.